Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builders Supply. This video is to bring you a closer look at the RCI 4-7-Jig Frame Prep Jig is what this is. This is a piece of machined aluminum that is a template or a router guide. Well, not a router guide. A template or a jig is what they're called, and they're titled. And you sure don't need to buy one of these. You sure don't. And you can also spend triple the amount of time and get a far less professional looking result too. You can do that too. These types of templates, they're not inexpensive, but they really make just such a perfect job when you're done, in the sense of you're not using a jigsaw, masking tape, a combination square, and laying out lines on pencil over masking tape and then drilling holes. You'll drill one hole and then running a jigsaw and you can't get it on there because of the stop. With something like this, you attach it down to the frame, you probably already have the hole, but you let the router do all the work. The only downside of using a template like this is that they're loud, because a router with a carbide bit cutting aluminum is a loud operation. That's the only downside. Let's give you some dimensional properties and we'll talk about what it's used for. Overall height, about 7 inch. Overall width on the rabbit part, about 2 1/8. Then the overall width on the face of the frame looks like it's about 2 5/16. Material thickness, that looks like it's 3/8. Yeah, spot on. It's obviously just a typical aluminum anodized color, nothing special about that. Nice and bright. And you'll also note that there's a line here. We're going to talk about that as well. Let's talk about what you use this for. If you are enjoying this video, please click thumbs up or like, and also please consider subscribing to our channel. Let's move on to the rest of the video. What this is used for, this template or this jig, I don't know the etymology, if that's the right word, the history of the word jig as it pertains to a tool. I would call it a template, is what I would refer to this as. This is a hardware template. This is a physical template, and what you're going to use it for is to make really speedy work of getting hardware prepped to a frame, and that's what this is used for. This can be used, it's intended most certainly for aluminum frames, but you can also use it for steel frames as well, and we'll talk about that. So how this is used, the installation instructions, which we'll go over in a moment, are very succinct. They're elegant. Not a lot of language. It's simple and straightforward. There's different ways that you can approach this, and I think that my training and experience would take me the long way to get there. The important part is that line represents the center of this template. Ideally, the center line of your latch bolt is the center line of the strike. If I was going to do this, I would probably stick my tape measure up underneath the header, come down to the center line of where I wanted my template, and I would mark that, and I would attach my template. Then I would determine where my latch bolt center line is in relationship to what the center line of its strike is, and it's probably not going to be the same dimension. Hook my tape measure on the top of the door, come down to what the center line of the lock body would be to get that latch bolt lined up with the center of this, and know exactly where everything will have to be, where my strike will have to be and where my lock will have to be. The installation instructions approach it from the opposite direction, and they're a bit more elegant, assuming all things are equal. And what they say is, put the tape measure, mark from the ground, or the bottom of the frame, to the center line of where the strike needs to be. Mark from the ground to the center line of where your latch bolt needs to be. Those two dimensions are the same if you measure from the floor, from the ground, where the frame sits on and where the door is going to sit over. That would be the same dimension. So, you know, whatever your lock dimension is going to be from the ground to where the frame sits to the center line of that latch, assuming that latch is in the center line of the strike, that's where your bottom of the frame to the center line of the template would be. The most important thing is, and what would possibly cause someone to slow down, pause, let's study this, is that the center line of the latch bolt and the center line of the keeper probably need to be the same. It's not like a mortise lock where you're going to have a 3/8 of an inch adjustment on a government mortise lock prep. And the reason they kick that mortise lock down, the center line of that lock body, move it down 3/8, is because in some functions you have a deadbolt and they want to fit that deadbolt and the latch within the confined space of a 4 7/8 strike. So they scooch that down 3/8 of an inch. Now, cylindrical locks don't have that reposition of center line. The center line of the latch is the center line of the strike because the hole in the strike is right in the center of the strike plate. So regardless of how you get there in terms of where you're going to locate this, that's probably what you're shooting for. And we will go over the installation instructions step by step in a moment. But once you get the center line struck, and I have a pencil with me at all times. It can be erased, it can be taken off, no problem. I don't like to scribe things. I don't like to use marker on anything. And that's just the bottom line. So mark your location, line that up, that grooved machined line in the aluminum with the center line of your prep. You're going to mark these two holes. You're going to drill and tap those two holes right into the aluminum frame. You're going to attach this template right to the aluminum frame with those holes you've just drilled and tapped with those 12, probably 24 screws that you are getting with the strike. Then from that point, assuming that you've got some hole here, you're going to get the router put in there. I'm going to put this down. You're going to hold that router super tight, and you're going to slowly go all the way around. Ear protection, eye protection, mandatory, absolutely mandatory. Gloves, even a mask if you want to go that far, not a bad idea. And it's going to chatter awful. It's going to make one hell of a racket. But you don't have a lot of work that you need to do. And aluminum, I don't know the right term, but it's like the chemical profile of it changes, so it turns very brittle. It's like it's torn apart, superheated at that spot, and then it's no longer really aluminum. So expect it to be very odd when you're cutting through it. But you always want to certainly use a carbide bit in all instances when machining aluminum. But there's no problem using a router for aluminum. What I like to do, though, is I like to have tools for the wood applications and then different tools for the metal applications. Because I find that micro pieces of metal get fused in my base. And here I am routing on my door or on my template and just having a heck of a time, having a grand old time. And then it turns into a heck of a time because I realize I have micro scratches on my work. Masking tape is a great idea on things that you're going, and I would certainly masking tape this, put masking tape on every place here, and then I would router right through that because I don't want anything to mark that clear anodized finish on the frame or whatever it is, that dark bronze or black. So that's how this is really used. By the way, it weighs about 0.67 pound. It does include the instructions. Let's switch to the screen view now and let's take a closer look at those and see if we've got it correct the first time. If you've not hit subscribe yet, we would very much appreciate if you did, and hopefully you're enjoying this video. Now, let's get back to it. Okay, here's the item that we are looking at. Not a lot to see here. Let's take a look at some actual photographs. There's the packaging, the label, and now some specific images, obviously showing you the model number of what you're working with, the face of the frame, the backside, cross section. Okay. Extended description information. Frame prep jig for ANSI sized electric strike. That means 4 7/8. There's going to be some pretty important information here as well in just a moment. Yeah, so okay. Compatible with these series of strikes. When you buy one, we'll ship you one. Here's a reference or a link to a catalog. This is going to be good for those 4 7/8 tall strikes that we need to scroll through to get down to some. They're telling us that our models are the 41 and 7100 series. 4 series, here we go. So these 4 series with a 4 7/8 strikes, square or radiused corner. Our 7 series as well. There's also a link to the installation instructions, and here they are. Let's go over it. Take measurement from floor to center line of lock set latch on door. That's pretty easy to understand. Transfer dimension to door frame and mark center line on frame. So let me back up. Take measurement from floor to center line of from lock set latch on the door. Okay, so we're clearly just dealing with the latch dimension. Transfer that dimension to the frame and mark the center line of the frame. Align the center line mark on frame with the center line on the jig, and that's that notched, that grooved indicator. Mark frame and drill 2 mounting holes. These holes will be used later to install mounting tabs for the electric strike. Drill and tap for the number 12 screws. You're going to use those. Attach jig to the frame using screws provided. It's in the strike hardware pack. It doesn't come with this jig. For aluminum frames, router cut in the frame following the jig, 1/4 inch flute, carbide bit, and a 5/16 guide bushing recommended. For hollow metal frames, trace the cutout outline out of the frame, remove the jig, and cut on the inside of the traced outline using a jigsaw. File corners of frame cutout to accommodate a square faceplate. Mount your RCI strike. Now what's important to know here is that, and I would probably put bold letters, super important. When they say that they recommend, these sizes are required, that the diameter of the bit and the outside dimension of the guide need to be those dimensions. Otherwise, when you drop your router in here, you're not going to get the right size. Now, when I put my tape measure on the inside of this, and I know that I'm supposed to yield a 4 7/8 strike, this is, looking at my tape measure, it's about 90 thousandths heavy. About. I'm just eyeballing it. And that's because of the difference. It's basically 5/16 minus 1/4 divided by 2. So that's a 32nd of an inch. And that's really kind of what it is. Well, that, I was saying 90 thousandths. It looks like it's, a 16th heavy. So the point of the matter is, if you can use a 1/4 inch bit, and you can use a 3/4 guide, but you are going to get the way wrong net size. Your prep is going to be far too small because you are bumping that router bit off away from the inside perimeter of the template by too much. So if you don't have this and this on your tooling, this is not going to work. Now what you can do is use it as a way to put it on the frame and trace with a pencil and then cut with a jigsaw. And what they're saying is, for hollow metal frames, trace the outline onto the frame, remove the jig, and cut on the inside of the traced outline. And that's because the template is about a 1/16 of an inch too large to accommodate for the difference between 5/16 and 1/4. So that's a 1/16. And it is a 1/16 too big, but you're dividing it in half because you're only thinking about you're thinking about the radius, or the half of the diameter of these two items as that router bit comes into contact all the way around. You're going to lose, you need to be a 1/16 small. You're only going to be a 32nd here and a 32nd here. You put those together and you have your 1/16 of an inch. So this and this is muy importante. You have to have that math figured out, whether it be this or hinges or whatever you're doing. The net size, the hole in the inside of your template, is equal to what you are required to yield, and then the variable is going to be the product of your guide minus your bit divided by 2. That should equal, and that's what you're going to need. And that's how important that is. Now, there is a link below this video as seen here to the manufacturer's page within our site. And from there, you can pull up not only all of the RCI products that we sell by means of this horizontal navigation as seen here, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog, etc., etc. Prior versions of the catalog are here, and any encyclopedic documents that we come across, we will upload there as well. Don't have much for Rutherford controls there just isn't much. And admittedly, I don't do a ton of RCI material, and they are now part of, or I don't know, perhaps they have been for a while, part of the Dormakaba family of properties. And that means to me that you're going to get really good technical support. I have called RCI in the past and was looking for, actually not too long ago, was looking for a discontinued strike, and this strike came up in no catalogs I had. I may have found a reference to it in this 8-year-old price list. But the person that I was speaking to knew exactly what I wanted and knew exactly the correct part number to tell me to convert it to. I mean, knew it so well that it took a leap of faith to believe that the person knew what they were saying. Spot on technical support. Let's wrap up this video on camera. If you've made it this far into this video, you must be determined to see it through to the end, and we appreciate your hanging in there with us and watching this entire video. It means a lot. It takes a lot of work to create these videos in the sense that, you know, it's time taken away from doing other things. However, the advantage for me personally of creating these videos is the fact that it does allow myself to either learn about something new, to reacquaint myself with something, or to reinforce what I believe that I already know. Any comments that you might leave down below would be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Not much else to say. If you have one of these to do, I may pass on the template idea. But if you had more than one, or you encounter them a little more often, or maybe you are a locksmith and you like using RCI products, this is probably going to be a tool in your stable. Would be absolutely my guess. This is the only way to survive. You can do lots of these in a day if you have this template, and the nice thing is it's going to look really nice when it's done. A 1/4-inch diameter router bit is going to leave you with an 1/8-inch radius, so make sure that you're selecting the faceplates that have that small radius, or if you're using square corner, you're going to get in there with your file and you're going to square out those corners. It's aluminum. Not a big deal. You want to be sure you don't overdo it so that you don't open that inside corner out a little bit too much. Get nice and even with it, back and forth, okay? Don't take away, when you're trying to notch the vertical side, don't chew away any of the horizontal side, things of that nature. A little practice does make perfect. Any questions on this or any other RCI product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you. Again, thank you for watching, and if you've enjoyed this video, please click thumbs up, please subscribe, and maybe even send the video to someone that you know. Thank you.